Hi everyone, and welcome back. Today we're gonna go over Skaven. It's an interesting faction. I'm gonna try something slightly different this video. I'm showing the build here. So this is the build, and I'm gonna talk to you kind of like how I got to this point. But I'm still gonna build it from scratch here. So let's see if I can recreate this after deleting it. So for Skaven, you have a lot of lords, and you almost only ever see one in competitive play. That's because Ikit Claw is particularly convenient. Usually he's on his Doom Wheel. I can't remember which one I put. But okay, so he does a reasonable amount of damage. He shoots the whole time. Meanwhile, he is pretty mobile. He's fast. He's got good health. He has good spells. He has good items. There's some reasons to bring other of these lords, and people do them. But for the sake of starting, um, we're gonna go with Ikit Claw. So for Ikit Claw, the spells that you want to consider here are Howling Warp Gale. Howling Warp Gale is really good at freezing firing or flying units, which can be really helpful for buying you some time to get to protect your guns, that kind of thing. Meanwhile, Cleansing Ruins is you can imagine it as like kind of a slow area of effect spirit leech. So it kind of like you almost always want to overcast the spell, and you just put it on your opponent's lord or some big monster or some big clump of units that are fighting, and it just goes and goes and goes, and it does a lot of damage. So very good spell. This is sort of like if you only brought one spell, this is the spell to bring. But it's nice to have Howling Warp Gale as the second option. So looking at some of his other things, Musk of Fear is a very good lore passive, but because we're only expecting to cast Cleansing Ruin for most of this game, we're just going to take it off. Brass Orb is a very good vortex, a lot of armor piercing damage, so always want to bring that. And then Unlimited Power is probably also one of the biggest reasons to bring Ikit. It does damage to him half the time, but it adds reserve, so you always want to be popping this when it's ready, and it'll add you a lot of WOM. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about DPS. I almost always I think this unit is very good. It's good at killing infantry. It's good at killing big monsters, and it's hidden. So it's hidden until it shoots. Once it shoots, you can't see the unit, but you can see where the bullets are coming from. So it kind of gives it away. It's a very good unit. It has a lot of different uses, so you can kind of just sit this and shoot away for the until it uses up all of its ammo, and it'll pay for itself. You can unsummon it. Yeah, so kind of similar. I was talking about skirmishers in the last faction, or in the Slanesh one that came out yesterday. This is another one. I'm gonna recommend you bring two Night Runners to capture points early. They have Vanguard. They have a missile, a small amount of missiles that they can throw, but a really high model count. So they actually throw a lot of missiles. They're good. It's fine to like use up their ammo and then unsummon them. You don't need to use them in melee or anything. But they're good getting on points, and they kind of poke whatever is there. So kind of some nice early capture weight. Now, now I'm gonna recommend. These were recently buffed. These storm vermin with halberds. So storm vermin with halberds. The reason that I'm recommending them, especially for this beginner build, is that they have, for a Skaven, very high leadership, and again for a Skaven, high armor. So having an infantry that's kind of durable, they don't have the best stats, but they stick around for a long time. So I wanted to recommend that for a beginner that you have some some units that won't just run away at the first opportunity, and they have pretty good bonus versus large and good AP. So if you can get them fighting large things, they actually do pretty well. The only caveat is they're pretty small themselves, so they'll take a lot of damage if they're not braced. So you want to be always getting that charge defense versus large. But yeah, but good for a beginner because you will be able to have something stick around, and Skaven aren't the best at sticking around. That's kind of their thing. Um, Next, I'm going to recommend one Rat Ogre. The Rat Ogre here, and I've been doing this in a lot of my other builds, so just to explain like what I'm doing here, I'm recommending that you bring a unit of like monstrous infantry in the starting army so that you don't have to wait for it. So you don't end up in a situation where like you accidentally forgot that like you didn't summon this and you needed it right away to protect your natty buobos. So that's these rat ogres jobs. We'll put them right next to the natty buobos so they can remember that they're best friends, and they always watch each other's backs. uh, and then you'll have a happy Skaven life. um, Now, for Skaven are another one of those factions. I said about the Empire that the 350 Spearmen are really good value because they're so cheap in terms of capture weight. So for Skaven, that's pretty much the same thing. That Clan Rats are really good capture weight. They're very cheap. Um, the They don't have amazing melee attack. They do get this when they're above 50%, but still we're looking at like 24 and 30. Um, so these units are mostly there for buffer, more for bodies than they do damage, but sometimes at a pinch they're there, and they can kill things like skeletons if you're fighting some of the factions with weaker stats than even clan rats. But yeah, not there for the stats. They're there for the bodies. And those furry bodies, they sure can be bodies. um, yeah, so this is kind of the starting army. And then between the spears, these two spears without the shields, if we look at the clan rat spear versus the Empire Spearman was less money for 350 for 40 melee defense. So even with this, it's still a significantly higher leadership. So, anyways, again, just more bodies and made the spend work out a little better. So maybe I have a slight preference towards the clan rats with shields. Um, but I think it's a small difference. And sometimes you want to have a mix of spears and shields. Um, because they do have charge defense versus large. And yeah. So while I'm on this topic, I'm also just going to briefly say that I'm not recommending that you bring Skaven slaves. These units are good and they have a purpose, but that purpose is very difficult for a beginner to get good use out of. So I actually kind of recommend that you probably don't use these, and I don't think it's as necessary as it says was in like the Chaos Dwarf roster. So I'm going to recommend that you don't bring these in your armies until you get a little more comfortable with the faction and the way in which the Skaven route, because you need to sort of be used to all of your frontline breaking and then kind of fighting in multiple rounds. Um, so for the next, basically for the reinforcement army, I'm going to recommend that you bring one Poison Wind Globe. Some builds have two or more of these. I'm just going to recommend you bring one. And this is sort of like an infantry crowd clearer, especially unarmored infantry. It actually has okay AP, but it does a lot of damage versus unarmored infantry. And basically, these are useful to bring. They have high armor. You can shoot them at infantry. They clear things, but they're kind of hard to keep alive. They have pretty small health pools, so they get pretty easily doven. um, and you don't want them to die. So that's kind of where I'm gonna go with that. And then I'm gonna recommend you bring one more storm vermin for the same reason that these ones are here. Sometimes you just want uh, more capable bodies. Um, in terms of shooting, I'm gonna actually recommend that you bring one more Night Runner. Because they have Vanguard, they come from the reinforcement pool very quickly. So you can kind of like pull them up if you need last minute capture weight. But that unit's very optional. And now getting into the heart of the army. So what you might notice is that we're kind of light on DPS here. Like sure, Storm Vermin are there, but they're not really DPS units. They're more just holding units. And Rat Ogres are good for DPS, but I only have one of them. So how are we gonna win battles? Well, we're gonna win battles like this. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna recommend that you bring 3 Doom Flayers. Doom Flayers are very good anti-infantry. They have huge anti-infantry, and they're really tanky. They have good health. Um, so they actually do a lot of damage now. So you kind of stick these on infantry, and they'll kill armored infantry. They'll kill regular infantry. They'll even kill most forms of cav, as long as the cav aren't like really expensive cavalry. So they'll kill light cavalry pretty easily as well. So the Doom Flayers are just really strong generalist units that actually kind of skew the whole roster towards more of a melee focus. And continuing on to end out that melee focus, I'm going to recommend Rat Ogres. So Rat Ogres are definitely not as capable as Doom Flayers, but they still have some uses. Like they have mass. They will do okay into infantry, especially if they're getting their charges off, and they're fast, so you can get them into place quickly. Same thing with Doom Flayers; they come out of the spawn pretty quickly. So these are kind of like the cavalry equivalent in the Skaven roster. So we have some DPS units from shooting, but as a beginner, I'm going to recommend you actually bring very little shooting just until you get comfortable protecting the shooting that you do have, because it can be very difficult to keep shooting alive as Skaven, and that's a pretty like that's something you'll learn over time. So now the last, I'll just recommend one more unit. I'm going to recommend that you bring one Wolf Rat with poison. So this is sort of like your light cav equivalent. You can use it to maybe capture something, or you can use it to fight your enemy. I think most builds do need more than one Wolf Rat, but I'm going to recommend that you only bring one so that you remember not to summon this unit too many times. I've seen so many beginners summon like rat or dog units, like these small, fast, um, uh, mobile units, and they just lose so much value over and over again because they don't have that good of stats. And if you're not rear charging them or using them to like capture points quickly, it's very hard to get good value out of them. So to avoid the temptation of you using it too many times as a beginner, I'm just going to recommend that you bring one, and as you get more comfortable, you definitely want to consider bringing 1 or 2 more to protect your guns or to charge back lines or back cap points. Okay. Now, the last thing that we need here, and I say it in every build video, what we need here is capture weight. So we need capture weight, capture weight, capture weight. We always want to be thinking, do I have enough bodies at this point of the battle to capture the points? Because yes, it is very important to trade value with your opponents, and it's very important to be trading up in value. But there's sometimes you get to the end of the battle, and battles are just won and lost. Domination games are won and lost by the amount of capture weight you have on the field. So I'm going to recommend now that you max out your basically max out your clan rats. So I going with the theory of having kind of a combination of spears and regular units. I'm going to suggest that you bring this arrangement. So just that you have some spears, some more clan rats. You can see like these ones don't have spear or shields. Actually, the melee defense isn't that large of a difference, so it's probably fine to bring some more of the 300 ones. But to make our spend work out, we're going to go with this. So how do you play a build like this? You start with your Night Runners, capture 1 or 2 points depending on how you're feeling, keeping your Natty Bubos somewhere in the blob, keeping your Rat Ogres right next to your Natty Bubos as you push onto points, using Ikit to shoot. Let me just get that back. Shoot infantry, but mostly trying to keep them away from too many tricky situations, using the unlimited power as much as you can, getting your use out of your brass orbs, getting your flensing ruins. Oh, and it has terror too. I guess I didn't mention that. Something that I forget. So yeah. And then as you're thinking about what to summon, if you see your opponent has a lot of infantry, then you could consider bringing in a globe. You can then think, okay, do I want to save up for storm vermin to get a little bit more sticking power, or maybe am I just already moving into my melee DPS and starting to go through some of my melee units? Then towards the middle or even the end of the game, I'm summoning my clan rats and wolf rat and night runner. So kind of these units are probably the first ones out. These units are kind of the second tier. I mean, I maybe put the storm vermin in the middle as kind of like a middle of the game unit. So yeah, again, pick your save your builds. So yeah, Skaven beginner. I think I already saved this one. And pick your favorite banner. I think for me, it's probably Eshin. Eshin just has such a cool aesthetic about it, and it's just like a hand holding a dagger. So, anyways, um, pick your banners, do your things, go out there, kick some butt with some furry tailed people. And yeah, this video totally sponsored by the Rat Clan. If you are not already a member of the Rat Clan, it's trivially easy to join, and that's how we like it. So hit me up in Discord or whatever if you want an invite. Yeah, thanks for watching, and hope that you get some use out of this and start kicking some beginner butts. All right. Bye.
Bye.